During his 1799 visit to Denmark-controlled Norway, Thomas Malthus observed the country's harsh climate, limited agricultural land, and isolated population, which he believed hindered economic growth. He saw Norway as an example of his theory that population growth is constrained by resource scarcity. Malthus noted the poverty and poor education of the Norwegian people, who relied on small farms and fishing for survival, and concluded that the country's natural environment kept it from achieving significant economic development. Norway was not rich, in fact it was very poor. In the decades after Malthus's visit, things got worse. Wars, blockades, and embargoes crippled Norway's economy, and famines spread across the land. Norway, in many ways, seemed destined to remain undeveloped and insignificant. Today, Norway stands as the second richest country on Earth, ranks among the happiest, seventh healthiest, and one of the most democratic nations globally. In nearly every measure of national prosperity, Norway consistently excels, with all of its citizens considered quarter-millionaires on paper. But how did Norway achieve such remarkable success, while others who attempted to follow suit failed? Is Norway's economic miracle too good to be true? Let's look at the countries with large oil reserves. Together, they hold about 85% of the world's oil supply, yet they contribute only 8% to global GDP. Venezuela, which controls nearly 20% of these reserves, is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere and one of the poorest on Earth after years of economic mismanagement, hyperinflation, and a collapse in living standards. Many of the oil-rich nations on this list, including Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, and the UAE, are plagued by human rights abuses and extreme inequality. Russia has been in long-term decline, and Libya has been in chaos since Gaddafi's fall in 2011. There seems to be a similar pattern emerges with oil-rich countries. The more oil a country has per capita, the less democratic it tends to be. This phenomenon is often referred to as the paradox of plenty or oil curse. As of 2024, oil and gas make up 54% of global energy production. Even as the world shifts toward renewable energy, oil will remain essential for the foreseeable future. With oil prices nearing record highs, it might seem like having vast reserves would be an economic boon. But oil can be like winning the lottery. Nations often find themselves flooded with cash, leading to lower taxes and increased spending. As the oil sector dominates the economy, it stifles other industries. Exporting more oil raises demand for local currency, boosting buying power abroad but undermining domestic manufacturing. Politicians and dictators alike often prioritize short-term spending over long-term planning, leading to corruption and wealth concentrated among the elite, while ordinary citizens suffer. Norway, however, stands out. Despite being an oil-rich nation, its economy wasn't crippled like that of Libya and Venezuela. But what sets Norway apart? A century after Malthus's visit, Norway had just gained independence from Sweden. At the time, it was still poor and underdeveloped, reliant on exporting raw materials like timber, fish, and minerals, with little in common with its rapidly industrializing southern neighbors. Despite its challenges, Norway had some key advantages. In the previous half-century, during an era of free international trade, the country built the world's fourth-largest merchant fleet, gaining valuable expertise in shipping, trade, and technology. This made Norway an important source of foreign currency. During its struggle for independence, Norway also developed a robust parliamentary system, leading to universal suffrage, workers' rights, and social reforms. The widespread distribution of political power, along with checks and balances, provided a strong foundation for future prosperity. Though its geography was harsh, it offered a significant resource, cheap hydroelectric power, which laid the groundwork for industrialization. At that time, nearly three-quarters of Norway's hydroelectricity was controlled by foreign companies. Seeing this as a threat, the government enacted legislation to limit foreign ownership and prevent monopolies, asserting that Norway's resources should benefit Norwegians. This early experience of resource management would prove vital later on. At the same time, advancements in technology, like railways, roads, and communication methods, helped reduce Norway's isolation and began to level the playing field with other European nations, sparking rapid economic growth and industrialization. However, Norway's development took a different path. It prioritized welfare, education, and public industry, which would later prove essential. Despite economic growth, Norway remained small and dependent on international trade, making it vulnerable to global political and economic shifts. It stayed neutral during both World Wars, but its merchant fleet suffered significant losses in the first, and during the second, it was occupied by Germany for 5 years. By the war's end, like many other nations, Norway faced the challenge of rebuilding its economy. Norway became deeply involved in international organizations and was one of the largest per capita recipients of aid from the U.S. Marshall Plan. The Labour Party used this moment to establish a strong social democratic system, emphasizing the public sector and centralized planning while still encouraging private competition. From 1945 to 1975, Norway's economy grew steadily, with an annual GDP increase of 3.3%. Despite high taxes, heavy investment in education transformed the workforce into one of the most skilled globally. Inequality decreased, inflation stayed low, and unemployment was nearly non-existent. By the 1960s, Norway was no longer poor, having caught up with much of Europe, though it was still considered an average economic performer. Then things shifted dramatically. Following the discovery of large natural gas reserves in the Netherlands, speculation grew about oil in the North Sea. Although the government was initially doubtful, Norway staked its claim to the waters. After several failed attempts, Phillips Petroleum struck oil in 1969, transforming the economy. Thousands of high-paying jobs emerged, turning small fishing towns into oil hubs, and massive wealth flowed into the country. Unlike Venezuela, where foreign companies profited while the country remained under dictatorship, Norway's decentralized political system ensured no single entity could monopolize the benefits. The government insisted that Norway's natural resources belonged to its people. Foreign companies could assist with exploration and drilling, but most profits would go to the state, and Norway created its own national oil company, Statoil, to eventually outpace foreign expertise. Norway's success with oil is a prime example of what happens when a country makes careful, strategic decisions with long-term sustainability in mind. Unlike many oil-rich nations that succumb to corruption, wasteful spending, or the hollow promise of short-term prosperity, Norway's government had the foresight to recognize that oil wealth could be fleeting if not managed properly. They were cautious not to allow the oil sector to overshadow other industries, making sure to maintain a balanced and diversified economy. What truly sets Norway apart is its commitment to the future. By establishing the government pension fund, they ensured that the wealth from their oil reserves wouldn't be squandered in a single generation, but would continue to benefit future generations. The strict rules governing the fund, which prevent it from being used for short-term political gains or unethical investments, have been key to its growth and success. Today, the fund serves as a buffer against economic shocks and a resource for funding social programs, all while Norway continues to foster innovation and maintain strong social welfare systems. This forward-thinking strategy has allowed Norway to thrive even in the face of global economic fluctuations. While other countries might see their oil fortunes diminish or find themselves unprepared for the future, Norway's careful stewardship of its resources has ensured that it remains one of the wealthiest, most democratic, and happiest nations on Earth. The lesson from Norway is clear: wealth, no matter how vast, must be managed with discipline and vision to create lasting prosperity. Norway didn't just get lucky, it built its success through a combination of good governance, strategic investments, and a commitment to the well-being of its people for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, show some support by hitting the like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remain curious.